Imagine waking up 1 year from now and realizing you have saved an entire year's salary without getting a huge raise, winning the lottery, or working extra hours. Sounds impossible, right? Well, I did it, and I'm here to show you how. Most budgeting advice tells you to stop drinking coffee and track every penny. But let's be honest, who wants to live like that? That's why most people fail at budgeting. It feels like punishment, not freedom. But here's the truth. Budgeting is not about sacrifice. It's about control. It's about making your money work for you instead of wondering where it went. I didn't stop spending on things I love. I just learned how to spend smarter. In this video, I'll share simple but powerful strategies that help me save a full year's salary. No extreme penny pinching, no complicated spreadsheets, just real, practical methods that fit into normal life. If you've ever struggled with saving money or felt frustrated by budgeting, this video is for you. By the end of this video, you'll see how small changes can make a huge difference in your bank account and your future. Ready? Let's go. Number 1. The mindset shift. Why budgeting fails for most people. Most people think budgeting means cutting out everything fun. It feels like going on a strict diet. You try to stick to it, but eventually you give up and go back to old habits. That's why so many budgets fail. They are built on restriction, not on a system that actually works for real life. Another problem is that traditional budgeting assumes people make logical money decisions. But in reality, spending is emotional. We buy things because they make us feel good, relieve stress, or give us a sense of reward. That's why simply writing down a budget doesn't mean we'll follow it. Budgeting also fails when it doesn't adjust to life's ups and downs. Some months, we have extra costs, maybe a car repair, a family event, or a holiday. A rigid budget doesn't prepare for this, so people either give up or feel like they failed. But there's a better way. Instead of seeing budgeting as a set of rules, think of it as a game where you control the outcome. The goal isn't to spend less, it's to spend better. By making small, automatic changes and focusing only on the most important expenses, saving money becomes effortless. When I stopped looking at my budget as a punishment and started seeing it as a tool for freedom, everything changed. The stress disappeared. My savings grew without feeling like I was missing out. And for the first time, I felt in control of my money, not the other way around. Number 2. The dose. Smart budgeting strategies that actually work. The biggest change in my savings journey came when I stopped forcing myself to follow strict budgets and instead created a system that worked for my life. The truth is, most people fail at budgeting because they try to change everything at once. But real success comes from making small, smart changes that don't feel like sacrifices. The first and most important strategy one used was something I call the first pay rule. Instead of spending money first and saving whatever was left, I flipped the process. As soon as my paycheck arrived, I immediately moved a portion of it into savings and investments. I never even saw that money in my spending account, so I didn't feel tempted to use it. The best part? I set this up automatically, so I didn't have to think about it. Over time, I got used to living on a smaller amount, and my savings grew without any effort. Another thing that made a huge difference was focusing on cutting waste, not cutting happiness. A lot of budgeting advice tells you to never eat out, but for most people, those small treats bring happiness. Instead of cutting the things I enjoyed, I removed expenses that didn't add value to my life. I went through my bank statements and I switched to a phone plan that cost half as much, but worked just as well. I stopped buying name brand groceries when the store brand tasted exactly the same. None of these changes made my life worse, but they saved me hundreds of dollars every month. One of the biggest problems with traditional budgeting is that people think about their spending in monthly terms. But a month is too long to control spending. That's why I started using weekly spending caps instead. Every Sunday, I gave myself a set amount of money to spend for the week. If I ran out before Friday, I had to wait until the next week. This worked because it was easier to control small amounts of money over a short time than to track everything over 30 days. At first, I had to adjust my habits, but soon it became second nature. It helped me avoid impulse purchases because I could see exactly how much I had left. Another game-changing habit was focusing only on my biggest expenses, instead of stressing over every little purchase. Most people waste time tracking tiny expenses, but those things don't usually ruin a budget. The real problem comes from the big three: housing, food, and transportation. When I realized this, I stopped worrying about small spending and looked at where my biggest money was going. Housing was my largest expense, so I found ways to reduce it. I negotiated my rent and got a lower rate just by asking. I also started house hacking, renting out a small part of my apartment, which covered a big portion of my monthly cost. For food, I stopped mindless grocery shopping. Instead, I made a meal plan, bought in bulk, and cooked at home more often. But I didn't cut eating out completely, I just limited it to social occasions instead of random cravings. Transportation was another area where I saved big. I realized my car was costing me a fortune in gas, maintenance, and insurance. So I sold it and switched to using public transportation and ride-sharing. It wasn't just cheaper, but also way less stressful. At first, these changes seemed small, but they stacked up quickly. Without even feeling like I was making sacrifices, I was saving more money than ever. The best part? I never felt deprived. The final strategy that helped me was making saving fun and rewarding. Most people think of saving as a chore, but I turned it into a game. I created a freedom fund, a separate savings account just for exciting things, like future travel or dream purchases. Watching that account grow made saving feel exciting instead of like a burden. This small habit helped me avoid impulsive buys while making my savings grow even faster. These strategies worked because they didn't rely on willpower. Number 3. The don'ts. Budgeting mistakes that kill your savings. Many people struggle with saving money, not because they don't earn enough, but because they make small budgeting mistakes that add up over time. When I first started trying to save, I made these mistakes too. I was tracking every penny and following budgeting rules that didn't actually work for me. The more I tried to control my spending, the more frustrated I became. One of the biggest mistakes I made was trying to track every single expense. I wrote down everything. It felt exhausting, and eventually I gave up. The problem wasn't that I wasn't disciplined enough. The real issue was that I was focusing on the wrong things. Instead of stressing over tiny purchases, I should have focused on the big expenses that actually mattered. Another mistake I made was budgeting based on hope instead of real numbers. At first, I created a budget that looked great on paper, but didn't match my actual spending habits. I told myself I would only spend $100 on groceries, even though I had never done that before. I expected myself to save half my paycheck, even though I had never saved that much before. My budget was unrealistic, and every month, I felt like a failure when I couldn't stick to it. The moment I started using my real spending history to create a budget that made sense, everything became easier. The moment I stopped making these mistakes, my savings started growing effortlessly. The key to successful budgeting is about creating a system that works for your life. Once I figured that out, saving money became easy. Number 4. The game changer. How I saved an entire year's salary. When I started my budgeting journey, I never thought I would be able to save an entire year's salary. It felt impossible. But once I made a few key changes, the money started adding up faster than I expected. The biggest game changer was realizing that saving money wasn't about cutting everything. It was about redirecting my money to the right places. Instead of saving whatever was left at the end of the month, I made saving my first priority. The moment my paycheck hit my account, a portion of it automatically moved into a separate savings and investment account. I never saw that money in my spending account, so I never felt tempted to use it. This simple switch made saving effortless. I also stacked my savings in multiple places. Instead of keeping all my money in one account, I created separate savings for different goals. I had an emergency fund, an investment fund, and a freedom fund for exciting things like travel. Seeing my savings grow in different areas kept me motivated and made the process more fun. Another major shift was earning more without working extra hours. I negotiated lower bills, used cashback apps, and took advantage of every discount available. I also asked for a raise at work and looked for small ways to make extra income without sacrificing my free time. With these simple but powerful changes, I saved more money in 1 year than I ever thought possible. It didn't happen overnight, but it also wasn't as hard as I imagined. Once I built the right habits, the money took care of itself. Now, I have the freedom to make choices based on what I want, not just what I can afford. The biggest lesson I learned is that budgeting is about making your money work for you. When you stop wasting money on things that don't matter, you gain the power to spend on what truly does. Now, if you want to learn how to achieve financial success, then watch this video next. If you made it to this point in the video, please like and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.